What's going on, everybody? So in today's video, we're going to be doing that Avenger and Space Ishtar comparison video. If you enjoy FGO content, I upload these videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video, a subscribe on the channel, and if you're feeling extra feisty, you can click that join button if you really like what I do, want to go that extra mile in showing your support. Now, with that little intro out of the way, I got to give my other intro that I do for all of these versus videos, where I'm not saying that if I say Avenger, is better. I'm not saying that Space Ishtar is complete dookie butt cheeks, and that if you decide to use her that you're an absolute fool, alright? I'm not saying any of that. And I'm not saying the inverse either. If I end up saying that I prefer Space Ishtar, or I think she's a little better than Avenger, I'm not saying that this is a trash servant and you're a big dumb idiot for trying to summon for her or something like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. At the end of the day, use whatever servants you want to use, right? I mean, this game, you can pretty much get by with so many different team comps, so many different strategies, and you can kind of subvert the traditional, like, double support meta with so many different team builds that it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, you can probably get by with most things. So I don't want anybody to be, like, freaking out, being like, I can't believe. It's like, no, it is, bro. Like, just relax. Like, you can get by with whatever you want, right? It also comes down to, like, your own personal preference, right? So just wanted to get that out there because I don't want anybody to be super upset because, you know, if I say that Space Ishtar or is better, I know there's gonna be some people that are gonna be upset, but at the end of the day, it's like you can get by with whoever you want, right? It almost comes down to personal preference. I mean, you can kind of already see if we look here at the beginning with their hits and like how their deck is structured, you can see that Space Ishtar kind of sacks having like a better arts cards for better NP gain and then getting more buster cards, whereas like over here gets more of a quick arts deck. So she wants to be more of like this star gen arts looping servant that doesn't focus on getting the buster crits and everything like that, whereas like Space Ishtar does get that. So you can already see that, like, when it comes down to these two, you already have two styles of gameplay to choose from. Do you want higher NP gain over here with more buster cards for more damage, or do you want lower NP gain but better arts cards with some pretty decent quick cards? You know, you're not going to be genning like insane stars with her or anything, but I mean, just better. I mean, the fact that they have 4 hits does mean you can actually do a little bit with them, especially if you're able to get crits on them. You might actually be able to get some decent NP gain back as well from that. So you already have like 2 different servants right here. Like, they're both very similar in what they do, but they're both like different in a way already fundamentally with how they're structured and how their kits are like just structured already, right? So then we come to, I guess the next best thing to talk about is like their damage. If you're going to be farming, I think like it's good to show like what their damage is going to be, because you're going to be like, okay, well, Space Ishtar is going to be higher and is going to be way lower, but that's not necessarily true, because Space Ishtar over here, like, she only gets this NP damage buff over here once, and you know that's going to massively affect how much damage she's doing with her NP. Although, to be fair, if you're going to run her as an art servant, that is her default NP, so then you can kind of save this for the final wave. But I mean, you won't be having that same, like, this is not a consistent level of damage for her, because you're missing out on this 20% buff that multiplies into her card buffs that also adds into this NP damage buff over here. So, you know, just thought I'd go ahead and mention that. The other odd bit of, like, I guess consistency is that these are all 80% chances and they're only 20%. I really don't like that about Space Ishtar, because already you're having such a low card buff that it almost doesn't matter when you're getting only 20%, and then it also has an 80% chance to proc on top of all of that. It just makes it really annoying, and in my experience using Space Ishtar, you know, you don't get screwed over that many times, but when it does happen, it gets really annoying. And so that's why I think I'll just go ahead and open and say that I do prefer the way is built, because you're getting the arts buff, right? You're getting a 30% arts buff, which is fine for 3 turns, right? It's buffing up the damage of your arts cards. It's giving you more NP gain. I prefer that much more than being like, okay, you have a little bit of a chance to buff one of your card types. Like, I understand what they're going for, because they wanted to have this changeable NP type, right? So then they want you to have a buff for all of them. So no matter what you do, I mean, this attack buff, this NP damage buff, and then these will all be good for no matter what NP you have, as long as you get the corresponding card type. But I would much prefer the consistency, right, for Avenger, right? You might be able to give this to a point for Space Ishtar to be like, well, if she's going to be a buster farming servant, you know, it's nice that she can swap with what's her name? Koyenskaya, Scotty, and Castoria, whereas, you know, Kama over here is locked down with Castoria, but big whoop. She's locked down with Castoria, like literally the best support type servant we have right now by a pretty decent mile as well. Well, maybe Castoria versus Koyenskaya is a bit of a that's a bit of a topic. So maybe I'll leave that for another day. But basically what I'm saying is like it's not a big deal that she's restricted to only being able to farm with, you know, Caster Artori, because Caster Artori is like absolutely insane. And then they just give her very good consistent ways to get damage. Like she gets that 20% NP damage buff, but it just lasts for 3 turns, right? And then she has other ways to buff, like she still has the same 50% battery. She has other ways to buff up her damage, whether it be the Heartfelt Blaze, where this is going to be more useful when it comes to challenging content, but you could still use it in a farm. Like if you want to pop this and then you happen to have some face cards that you want to slap those in front of her NP, you can do that. This is very similar to how Hokusai functions, where Hokusai, if you're on like the 3rd wave, you might put 2 arts cards in front of your NP to make sure you lower the enemy's defense to then actually ensure that you will kill with your NP. So it's very similar to that, and it gives Kama a lot of flexibility. And then you also have this charm that she slaps on the entire enemy party that gives her an insane damage mod down here. And so that's what this was, just with her arts and her NP damage buff. If you slap in that 150% extra damage against charm, like ooga booga damage, right? There's a reason this is kind of limited in a way. In the way that I say that it's limited, that you can only use this on 1 wave, because you put this on the enemies and then they die. You can't like continue using this. It's not like she charms everybody every single turn. If she did, she'd be really stupid broken. But I do like this. Like this was kind of introduced with Corday for Banner 1, where they're like, we're going to give Corday a very solid special damage mod, but we're going to have it be something that you can put on anybody, because it's skill seal. And same thing for Kama. The fact that you could put this on anybody means you can essentially bring her anywhere, farming or challenge quests, you know, whatever you want, and she'll always pretty much be able to get some use out of her special damage mod, because you can slap this on people. And I do like how that works. And then, I mean, because it's charm, it's not just, oh, well, it's going to be down for 6 turns, you know, I can't use, you know, I'll be 6 turns without massive damage. Actually, no, because you could bring other servants that have charm. You know, I mean, there's good servants like Shuten Doji that also buff up Kama's damage as well. You know, so it's like by lowering all enemies' defense and then also giving her an attack buff. So it's like there are good servants you could pair with Kama that also charm the enemy, that also still then continue to give her more buffs, so she starts doing massive amounts of damage. Because actually, ironically enough, like just a raw attack buff is something she's actually lacking. So that actually would also skyrocket her damage up a bit. Like just to kind of show that, like if we just slap on an additional 20%, because it's a different type of buff, boom, you jump up to like 68,000 on average, which is insane. So this is kind of why I prefer the Kama to the Space Ishtar. Space Ishtar's not bad in any way. She has some good utility, right? Like I think the fact that she buffs the entire party's attack by 40% or 50%, my bad, is stupid crazy. Like that's stupid dummy good. And then the fact that she gives the entire party like the charm debuff immunity for 3 turns, I think that can be very good if you know what you're going into. Like if you know you're going to be going into a fight where they're going to be slapping a lot of charms around, like let's say you were fighting that the Gorgon sister fight, and they have a very big tendency to charm males. Well, if you bring Space Ishtar and then your male servant, you can give that male servant massive damage, and then you can also give them charm debuff immunity for basically the length of the fight. You know, you bring Arjuna Alti, you bring Space Ishtar to basically cover him up, and then you're absolutely fine. And then there is something to be said about her having this utility, about just being able to be used in any like team comps, like Buster, Arthur, Quick team comps. She's going to be useful in all of those, and there is something to be said about that. Like if it were like, if you were to really pin me down on it, I would probably say that Space Ishtar is the more valuable unit for someone's box, and Kama Avenger is just the better unit as a whole, because I think she does her job better than Space Ishtar. But Space Ishtar is more valuable as a unit because, you know, especially if you're more on the free-to-play side or you're more of a newer player, this is going to be one of those servants that you can quite literally splash into any teams with any supports, right? It doesn't really matter if there's a Merlin on the friends list, a Koyenskaya, a Scotty, a Castoria, Tamamo. No matter who it is, she's going to pair very well with them, right? She just wants any and all buffs that she can get. And remember, that all of her buffs are very basic. Like, she's just giving herself an attack buff and NP damage buffs. Those, aren't specific to any card type. It's not like she's specifically lowering quick resistance or specifically getting an arts mana burst, right? They don't really make it to where Space Ishtar leans in any direction in particular. So it just makes her very valuable in that, right? I also got to say that her Brave Chains are actually pretty good because of this. If you ever use Space Ishtar and like an NP Brave Chain and you notice she does a lot of damage, is because they just gassed up her extra attack. Like, the extra attack already has a pretty high multiplier, and then they just gassed that up by 100%. It does actually make her Brave Chains really, really strong. So that there is something to be said about that as well. But again, I think I'm very comfortable in saying that I think Space Ishtar is more valuable and Kama Avenger is the better unit. Kama does, like, the way that she's built, I just like this consistency, right? I like this ability of just, like, I know what I'm gonna get. The only thing that's a little inconsistent is maybe this. It just depends on how much of this that you're getting, but this is really just however many times you happen to get her face cards and everything. Like, you still get the same level of damage. Like, that's still that 27,000 damage. Like, that's still going to be consistent. There's no chance for you to lose it like with Space Ishtar. Like, you might lose off on 20% of one of your card buffs, and that could actually be a little annoying, right? So pretty comfortable saying that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, because I know some people have started asking this as soon as we saw the details for Summer Kama. Because if you didn't know, this year, what happened is, like, in the event, they had us use Kama, Canis, and Sei in the event story. So we already knew who the next 3 servants were going to be and what they did and, like, how good they were, like, the day the event started, basically. So we've already known that she was, like, this good. So a lot of you guys have probably, like, the more proactive people that are playing JP, or if you just checked it out in any way, you probably already have your opinions on this because you kind of already knew what Kama Avenger was going to do, right? So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about Kama versus Space Ishtar. Again, just to reiterate, use whoever you want to use. I'm not here to tell anybody that, like, their choices in team comps are wrong, unless you're like, dude, if you're running like Giles Caster, Diermud, and Eric Bloodaxe, I'm gonna be like, hey buddy, like, I think your team comp kind of sucks a little dookie. But I mean, if you're running something where you're like, oh, I'm running like Paracelsus, Dante, Scotty, I'm like, yeah, that's fine, like, you can get by with that. Or like, I'm running Asclepius, Lancelot, Scotty, I'm like, okay, you could probably get through with that, like, you'll probably be fine. It's like stuff like that is like, I don't really mind. Or if someone's like, oh, I want to run Tamamo and Castoria instead of double Castoria, it's like, again, also fine. Run the team comps you want. As long as there's some synergy, you're not going to catch any flack from me. Like, as long as I can see that you have like a game plan going, I'm not really going to care all that much. Run Shakespeare, Merlin, and I don't know, Sigurd in your team comp for all I care. I could tell you have a general through line with that plan. You're like, okay, I got 2 Buster supports, giving them NP. That's kind of what I'm going for. Fine by me, man. So just let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about Kama Avenger versus Space Ishtar? I'd love to read you guys' thoughts on this one. Kind of gauge where the community's at with, I almost said Space Kama, dude. Can you imagine? We get Saber Wars 3, we get Space Kama, and then she's just like a crazy pretender class. I have no idea. But yeah, enough speculation. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.